On the morning my in-laws erased my son's name, I was standing at their kitchen island, wrist deep in cookie dough. The house already smelled like cinnamon and clove, like the Christmases they bragged about to their friends. The Markhams do it best, as if it were a brand. Lights were strung along every window. The 12-foot tree in the living room glowed like a catalogue spread, and I was the quiet pair of hands making it all happen. Behind me, the printer on the sideboard spat out thick cream cardstock, one sheet after another. My mother-in-law, Diane, had insisted on proper printed place cards for the Christmas banquet because handwritten looks cheap. I hadn't questioned it. I'd booked the caterer, the rentals, the florist. She wanted place cards. I added the printer ink to my mental list of silent expenses. Mara, could you grab those and start folding them? She called from the dining room, where she was rearranging candlesticks for the third time. I wiped my hands, crossed the kitchen, and lifted the fresh stack of cards. The top one caught my eye: gold script, elaborate flourishes, just the way she'd shown me in the mock-up. I smiled for half a second, until I read the words. Welcome, baby James Markham, not Eli. It took my brain a heartbeat too long to understand what I was looking at. I read it again, my eyes stuttering over the letters like they were wrong pieces forced into a puzzle. My son's name is Elijah. Elijah Owen Markham, after my grandfather, and the first person who believed I could be more than someone's quiet wife. It's on his birth certificate, on the hospital bracelet I still keep in a drawer, on the tiny knitted hat we brought him home in. Here, on 70 glossy place cards, he was someone else entirely. Diane, I said, my voice coming out thinner than I meant it to. What is this? She stepped back from the dining table, smoothing an invisible wrinkle in the linen runner, and followed my gaze. Oh, that! She waved her hand like it was nothing. We decided James just sounded better for the evening. More classic. Elijah is sweet, but people like traditional names. You understand? My fingers trembled around the stack of cards. We who? She hesitated for just a fraction of a second. Well, your father-in-law agrees, of course. And Tyler thinks James is strong, very family. We're just talking about how he'll be introduced at the banquet, Mara. Don't be sensitive. Sensitive. As if what they'd taken was an opinion about a centerpiece, not my son's identity. Before I could form words that weren't shaking, Tyler walked in from the garage carrying another box of decorations. He kissed my cheek automatically, eyes already taking in the dining room. Wow, Mom, this looks incredible, he said. Babe, the rental's called Everything's Confirmed? I didn't answer him. I just held up the top card. My son, I said, deliberately and slowly, is not named James. Tyler's smile faltered. Mara, we talked about this. No, I said, and the word was like a small, sharp stone in my mouth. You talked. You said your parents didn't like Elijah, and I said they would learn to. I don't remember agreeing to rename him on Christmas. He shot his mother a quick look, that old, familiar flicker of please don't make this a thing already in his eyes. It's just for the banquet, okay? It's easier for people. Easier for who? I asked. Your friends? Your parents? Or you? For a moment, all I heard was the hum of the refrigerator and the distant carols from the smart speaker in the living room. On the counter beside me, the place cards fanned out like 100 little lies. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow I have a special story for you. Diane recovered first. She slipped into the tone she used with difficult vendors and waiters she thought beneath her. Mara, you're overreacting. It's one night. Hardly anyone even reads place cards. It's just about presentation. The Markhams host a certain kind of event, and people expect. Do they expect my child to be someone else? I cut in quietly. Her jaw tightened. He's a baby. He doesn't know the difference. But I did. And suddenly, it wasn't just about the cards. It was about the way Diane had introduced me for years as Tyler's wife, without ever mentioning that I had a job, a career, a whole life before their son. It was about how she assumed I had endless free time for errands because my tech work was remote. So clearly it wasn't real. It was about the countless times I'd sat at this same table, planning events she took credit for, paying invoices with my consulting income, while she bragged about our generosity. It was about the way, when Elijah was born, she insisted we look through a list of proper Markham names and had sulked for days when we chose something outside the list. We are not calling him James at the banquet, I said. Change them. Diane's expression cooled. That's not really your decision alone, dear. This is our family's Christmas. Our. Not once, in all the years I'd known them, had I heard her say your family when she meant me. Tyler put the box down with a sigh. Mara, come on. This banquet is important to them. Dad invited clients. Mum's been planning for months. I've been planning for months, I corrected him. I booked the caterer, the venue, the string quartet your mother insisted on. I paid the deposits. I built the RSVP website. He winced. I know. And we're grateful. Grateful. Like this was a favor. Not a pattern of me quietly underwriting their image year after year. Then you can be grateful while telling your mother that our son's name is not up for rebranding, I said. I don't care who she's invited. Diane's lips thinned. You're making drama over stationery. No, I said. You made drama when you decided your grandson's name was negotiable based on what looks good in gold script. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow I have a special story for you. Inside, I could hear Tyler moving boxes. The muffled sound of his parents' voices. I leaned against the deck railing, feeling the rough wood under my palms, and let the numbers run in my head. Deposit amount. Significant, but not ruinous. Our savings. Enough, thanks to my work, to absorb the hit if necessary. Emotional cost of going through with the banquet as planned. Immeasurable. You're really thinking about it, I whispered to myself. Cancelling Christmas. Not Christmas, I corrected in my mind. Their Christmas. The version where my son's name was editable. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend Joe. Joe. Surviving Mount Markham? How many passive-aggressive comments so far on a scale of 1 to at least he married someone tidy? I stared at the screen, then typed before I could overthink it. Me. They printed new place cards for the banquet. They changed Eli's name to James for the night, because it sounds stronger. Her typing dots appeared instantly. J.O. Are you kidding me? M.E. I wish. Deep breaths. You want me to come kidnap you and the baby for the weekend? We can eat takeout and watch trash TV. I smiled despite everything. Me. Tempting. But I think I'm going to do something else. Joe. The look in your text scares me in a good way. M.E. How much do you know about cancellation clauses? She called instead of replying. Tell me everything, she said, the moment I picked up. So I did. I told her about the cards, about Diane's he's a baby, he doesn't know, about Tyler's it's just easier for people, about the way my chest had felt like it was folding in on itself. Mara, Joe said. When I finished, they're not just editing a name. They're editing you. Again. I know, I said softly. And I let it slide. Again and again. Because it was just one fundraiser. Just one renovation. Just one gala. I told myself it was worth it for Tyler, for the family. Is it? She asked. I looked through the glass at the life-sized nutcracker in the corner of the living room, the perfectly coordinated stockings over the fireplace. None of them had my name on them. Diane had forgotten to order one for me last year, and said it was because you hardly ever here for Christmas. Dear, even though I'd been the one to drive 4 hours in a snowstorm so Tyler could make it. No, I said. It's not. Not anymore. So cancel it, Joe said. Pull the plug. Let them eat microwave dinners and explain to their friends why the party of the year evaporated. You make it sound so simple, I murmured. It is simple, she said. Not easy, but simple. Whose name is on the contract? Mine, I said. Whose money paid the deposit? Mine. Whose baby's name is on those cards? I closed my eyes. Not mine. Then take your money, your labor, and your child's name back, she said. Let them host whatever they want on their dime. You're allowed to say no. The wind cut sharper, making my eyes sting. Or maybe that was the tears. If I cancel, I said, it will be war. Maybe, Joe replied. But you're already living in a quiet war where you keep losing small pieces of yourself. Which battlefield feels worse? When we hung up, my fingers were numb from the cold. I went back inside, walked past Diane in the dining room without stopping, and into the little office off the hall where I'd set up my laptop for the week. I logged into the venue portal. The cancel event button was right where Lily had said it would be. I hovered over it, my cursor blinking like a heartbeat. If I clicked, the Markham Christmas banquet would vanish. The deposit would process back to our account within 5 business days. The staff would be notified. The date would open up for someone else. They would be furious. They would call it sabotage. But if I didn't click, I would sit at a long table under crystal chandeliers, listening to Diane toast baby James while my son slept upstairs, nameless in his own story. My hand stopped shaking. I clicked. A confirmation window popped up. Are you sure you want to cancel this event? Yes. I typed it with more certainty than I'd said almost anything all year. When the final confirmation appeared, my chest felt both hollow and strangely light. Outside, a car door slammed. I heard voices, laughter, the sound of more relatives arriving early to help. The machine of Markham Christmas kept spinning, unaware that its main power source had just flipped a switch. I closed the laptop and breathed. I didn't tell them that day. I wanted time to think, to plan, to make sure Elijah and I wouldn't be collateral damage in the fallout. Over the next 24 hours, I did 3 things. First, I moved the banquet. Not to another grand venue. Not to anything that could compete with Diane's vision of glittering chandeliers and a professional string quartet. I booked the small event space above our favorite cafe, the one with mismatched chairs and exposed brick and a view of the town square. They had availability on Christmas Eve afternoon, as if the universe had been quietly saving it for me. We don't usually host fancy parties, the owner, Mira, said apologetically on the phone. We can do a nice spread, though. Warm, cozy. Warm and cozy sounds perfect, I said. It's just close family and a few friends. And one very real baby. I sent new invitations, digital this time, to a carefully edited guest list. My parents, my sister, Jo, Tyler's younger sister, who had texted me furious solidarity about the name, and a handful of people who had shown me over the years that they saw me, not just the Markham brand. The subject line was simple. Christmas Eve with Elijah. Second, I separated our finances in every way that wasn't yet separated. I had always kept my consulting income in a different account, mostly because my clients paid in currencies. Tyler's parents didn't understand, but I had been using our joint card for shared expenses, including many that were not, in truth, shared. I printed statements. I took a pen and circled every line that said Markham, the florists, the caterers, The renovation company that had redone their kitchen last year, when Diane decided she needed a more entertaining, friendly space. The charitable donations in their name. I made copies of everything and put them in a folder labeled, simply facts. Third, I wrote a letter. It wasn't angry though. I was. It wasn't cruel, though part of me wanted it to be. It was clear. Dear Diane and Mark, I wrote, I love your son. I love that he loves Christmas because you made it beautiful for him. I love that you want to celebrate your grandson. But I will not attend, fund, or organize any event where my son's name is erased or altered to make anyone more comfortable. His name is Elijah. You don't have to love it. You do have to respect it. I am cancelling the banquet at Harrow Hall. The contract was in my name. The payments were made from my earnings. And I have exercised the right to withdraw them. If you would like to host your own event in the future, you are, of course, free to do so. On your terms, with your money, under your names. On Christmas Eve, I will be with Elijah at a small gathering where he will be called what he is. Himself. You are welcome to join us, as grandparents who choose to honor that. If you choose not to, that is also a decision. Love. Mara, I read it 3 times, editing out anything that sounded like pleading, adjusting anything that sounded like an attack. It wasn't about convincing them. It was about telling the truth. When it said exactly what I needed it to say, no more, no less, I printed it and sealed it in an envelope. Then I waited. The confrontation came sooner than I expected. It happened the next morning, after Tyler found the confirmation email from Harrow Hall in our shared inbox. Mara, he said, stepping into the guest room where I was changing Elijah. His voice had a hard edge I'd rarely heard. What did you do? I fastened the tiny buttons on Eli's onesie and kissed his forehead before I turned. I cancelled the banquet, I said. Why? His face flushed. Do you have any idea what you've done? Tyler, I said quietly, you saw the place cards. It was one night. He shot back. We could have talked to them. Worked it out after. You didn't have to blow up the whole evening. Dad has clients coming. Mum's been planning. I have been planning, I repeated, feeling déjà vu. And paying and working. You keep saying it's one night. But it's never just one night, is it? He stared at me, confusion and anger warring in his eyes. This is about more than the cards, I said. It's about every time your mother has decided how things will look and expected me to quietly execute it. It's about the times my name has been left out of introductions and thank yous. The times I've been told my work is cute or just online. And now it's about your parents deciding our son. S name is flexible based on what looks best in calligraphy. They didn't mean it like that, he protested. They just want things to be perfect. Perfect for who? I asked. Because it's not perfect for me. He ran a hand through his hair. A gesture I recognized from stressful meetings. Okay. So you're upset. I get that. But cancelling? Without even talking to me first? If I had asked, I said gently, what would you have said? He opened his mouth, then closed it. You would have told me not to rock the boat, I said. You would have asked me to compromise one more time. To be the bigger person. To let them have their Christmas the way they picture it. Is that so terrible? He asked softly. When the version they picture doesn't include who I am or who our son is, I said. Yes, it is. He sank down on the edge of the bed, looking at Elijah. I just wanted peace, he said, his voice breaking a little. You know how my mom gets. You know how my dad expects things. I know, I said, my tone softening. I've spent years knowing. And I've tried so hard to keep that peace tie. I've swallowed things I should have screamed about. I've written checks I couldn't comfortably afford so they could feel generous. I've made myself small so they wouldn't call me difficult. I took a breath. But peace that requires me to disappear is not peace. It's a performance. And I'm done performing. He stared at the floor. They're going to be furious, he said at last. I know, I said. They already are, probably. What am I supposed to tell them? The truth, I said simply. That your wife cancelled an event she paid for because she will not let her son be renamed for a party. He looked up at me, something like shame flickering behind his eyes. And what if they blame me? He asked. Then you can decide whether you want to correct them, I said. We were quiet for a moment, the sounds of the housepans clattering downstairs, someone laughing, a Christmas song playing too loudly seeping under the door. I've invited a few people to a smaller gathering, I said. At Café Juniper, on Christmas Eve. It's not fancy. No string quartet. But there will be actual joy, I think. And our son's name on his own little stocking. You did all this without me, he murmured. You left me alone with them for years, I replied softly. I learned to make moves on my own. He flinched. You're welcome to come, I added. As Elijah's father. Not as your parents' representative. He didn't answer. Diane and Mark didn't come to me calmly. They stormed. It was late afternoon when Diane burst into the guest room without knocking, Mark behind her, looking grim. How dare you, she said, skipping any pretense of politeness. I stood up slowly from where I'd been rocking Elijah. Good afternoon, Diane, I said. Mark, don't you good afternoon me, she snapped. What is this email from Harrow Hall? Cancelled by client. Client, you. It's exactly what it says, I replied. We have over 50 people expecting, she began. You have over 50 people expecting a banquet you didn't pay for, I said quietly. And now you have the opportunity to tell them the truth. The truth? Mark repeated, his voice low. The truth is you've embarrassed this family. The truth, I said, meeting his eyes, is that this family has been content to use my labor, my money, and my name as a line item on their image budget while pretending I'm just along for the ride. And now, that stops. Diane's face reddened. All this over a baby's nickname. His name, I said. Not a nickname. His name. You're being dramatic, she said. You always are. I let the words fall without catching them. I wrote you a letter, I said, nodding toward the envelope on the dresser. It explains everything. I don't need your manifesto, she snapped. I need you to fix this. Call them back, reschedule. No, I said. The room went very still. Excuse me. Mark said. No, I repeated. I'm not calling them back. I'm not rescheduling. I've already made other plans for Christmas Eve with my family. You are welcome to adjust yours accordingly. Your family, Diane scoffed. We are your family. My family, I said, looking down at Elijah, is anyone who can say my son's name without trying to edit it. Mark stepped closer, his presence filling the little room. You're making a mistake, Mara, he said. This will not go the way you think. I'm not doing this to control how it goes, I said, my voice soft but steady. I'm doing this because for the first time in a long time, I'm choosing what I can live with. And I can't live with my son learning, in 100 small ways, that who he is can be changed to keep other people comfortable. He's a baby, Diane repeated, as if repeating it made him less real. So this is when it starts, I said, with what we allow. We've given you so much, she said suddenly, her eyes filling with tears she could summon on command. We opened our home to you. We've helped with Elijah. I am grateful for the ways you've helped, I said. I also know exactly what I've given. I have the statements in that folder if you'd like to see. But this isn't a ledger we're balancing, Diane. This is a boundary. Boundaries, she spat. That therapy nonsense. You don't have to understand it, I replied. You just have to respect that I have them. Mark looked at me for a long moment, some calculation happening behind his eyes. If you walk away from this, he said, don't expect things to be the same. I felt a strange, quiet calm settle over me. I'm counting on it, I said. They left with the letter, slamming the door so hard Elijah startled awake. I held him close until his heartbeat settled against mine. We're okay, I whispered into his soft hair. Whatever storm they stir up, we're okay. Christmas Eve arrived like it always did, wrapped in glitter and expectation. At the Markham house, the one I could see across town from the cafe's upstairs windows, cars began pulling into the long driveway at 5. Even from a distance, the house looked like a magazine cover every light on. Wreaths on every window, the big tree shining through the front bay. At Cafe Juniper, Myra lit candles on mismatched tables and turned up the soft jazz. My parents arrived first, driving in from 2 towns over, my mother clutching a tin of her famous almond cookies like a peace offering. Oh, sweetheart, she said, hugging me tightly, Elijah squirming between us. We got your email. Are you sure about all this? I'm sure, I said. My father, usually a man of few words, kissed my cheek and murmured, proud of you, kiddo. Jo came with her wife, arms full of gifts and the energy of a one-woman pep rally. Look at this place, she said. It's like a movie where the heroine finally chooses herself. Tyler's sister Emily slipped in quietly, eyes wide. Mom is. She blew out a breath. Let's just say you picked the right place to be. She's telling everyone Harrow Hall made a mistake, but people are calling and there are rumors and you still came, I said. She straightened. Eli is my nephew, and you're my family, Mara, not just an appendage to theirs. Thank you, I said, throat tight. We ate finger foods instead of plated courses, passed Elijah from lap to lap, laughed until my cheeks hurt. There were no place cards, no speeches, no string quartet. But when my father raised his glass of cider in a toast and said, to Elijah whose name suits him perfectly, everyone echoed it with a warmth that reached a part of me the chandeliers at Harrow Hall never had. Across town, my phone vibrated endlessly, calls, texts, notifications from the Markham group chat exploding. I put it face down in my bag. Before we clean up, Jo said, I want a photo of you and Eli under that window, with the square behind you. This is your Christmas movie moment. We posed. We laughed when Eli yawned in the middle of it, and for a second, I felt free. Not reckless, not triumphant in a petty way, just free. When the last guests left and Myra hugged me, pressing a small envelope into my hand with a discount on future events, for when you want to celebrate something big, I knew this was the Christmas I would remember when I was old. Not the ones with glittering banquets. This one. The one where I stopped disappearing. When I finally turned my phone back on, there were 23 missed calls from Diane, 16 from Mark, and 5 from Tyler. My thumb hovered over his name before I hit call. He picked up on the first ring. Mara, he said. His voice sounded hoarse, like he'd been talking or shouting for hours. Where are you? At Juniper, I said. We just finished. Mum said you stole Christmas, he said with a bitter laugh that wasn't quite humour. She said you sabotaged the family. I cancelled a party I paid for and chose not to attend another, I said. If that's stealing Christmas, then maybe it needed to be stolen. He was quiet for a long moment. It was a mess, he said finally. Half the guests showed up here, because Mom never told them it was at Harrow Hall. She just said, the usual place. When they found out the banquet was cancelled, they were confused. Angry. Dad tried to blame the venue, but someone called and Harrow Hall told them the truth, I said. That the client cancelled. Yeah, he said. Mom is furious. She says you've humiliated her. I leaned against the cafe's brick wall, looking out at the dark street. I didn't do this to humiliate her, I said. I did it because I couldn't keep helping her curate a life that pretends I don't exist. She said you took away her Christmas, he repeated, as if the phrase itself hurt. Did Elijah have Christmas tonight? I asked. He was silent. Did he laugh? Did he fall asleep in someone's arms who loves him? Did he hear his name said with joy? I wasn't there, he said quietly. That sentence dropped between us like a stone. You could have been, I said gently. I know, he whispered. For the first time all day, I heard the crack in his certainty. Mom kept calling it the real Christmas, he said. Like what you're doing was, I don't know, a tantrum. But standing there tonight, watching people arrive to a house with no food, no music, just tension, I kept thinking about you. About Eli. About how you sounded when you said you were done performing. I waited. I think, he said slowly, I've been asking you to choose my parents over yourself for a long time. And you finally chose you. And him. I chose us, I said. I'm at the car, he said suddenly. I heard the jingle of keys. Stay there. Don't leave. Tyler, please, he said. Just 5 minutes. I hesitated. Then I said, okay, double quotes, 5 minutes later. His car pulled up outside the cafe. He walked in, shoulders hunched, hair messed like he'd been running his hands through it all night. Hey, he said. Hey, I replied. He looked around at the empty room, the candle stubs, the stack of plates by the sink. It looks nice, he said. Peaceful. It was, I said. How was he? He asked, nodding toward Elijah's car seat, where our son slept, fist wrapped around the ear of a stuffed fox. Happy, I said. Spoiled. Very clear on his own name. Something in his face shifted. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't rush to fill the silence. I let the words sit. You've been telling me in 100 ways that my parents treat you like you temporary, he said. Useful, but not anchored. I thought as long as you and I were okay, it would balance out. But tonight I realized, if I don't stand next to you when you draw a line, I'm not standing with you at all. My throat tightened. I should have said something when Mom first started with the names, he went on. I should have told her no, that it wasn't up for debate. You were raised to keep the peace, I said softly. At your expense, he said. And now at our son's. That's not the kind of man I want to be. He took a breath. I can't undo what happened, he said. But I can choose differently now. If you're still in this, with me. I studied his face, the boy I'd fallen in love with for his kindness. The man who had let his fear of displeasing his parents become a quiet cruelty to me without meaning to. I am, I said. But things have to change. Not just for tonight. For always. Tell me how, he said. Therapy, I said. Boundaries. Our own traditions that don't revolve around what looks good in a photo. The freedom to say no when your parents overstep without you asking me to smooth it over. Separate finances for anything involving them. Done, he said, without hesitation. And, I added, an understanding that if they can't say our son's name, they don't get access to him. They will scream, he said. They already are, I replied. He laughed weakly. Okay, he said. Then let them. He walked over to Elijah, leaned down and whispered, Hey, Eli. He glanced up at me. Elijah, he corrected himself intentionally. Merry Christmas, buddy. I exhaled a breath I felt like I'd been holding for months. He straightened and looked at me. "Can we come home with you?" he asked. "To your parents?" "To wherever you're staying." "We're at my parents' tonight," I said. "You can come." "On one condition." "Anything," he said. "You send your parents a message," I said. Not blaming me, not smoothing it over. Telling them this was your choice too. That you stand by it. He nodded slowly. "They'll say you manipulated me," he said. "Then you can tell them the truth," I replied. That I finally stopped letting them. He pulled out his phone, thumbs hovering. "I don't know what to say," he admitted. "Tell them," I said, "that from now on our family decisions start in our home, not theirs. And that our son's name is Elijah." He typed. He stared. He hit send. We both listened to the quiet cafe fill with the absence of their immediate response. He slipped his phone into his pocket. "All right," he said. "Let's go home." On the drive to my parents' house, Eli snuffled in his sleep in the back seat. Tyler drove with both hands on the wheel, like he was holding on to something new. My phone buzzed a few times. I didn't look. When we pulled into my parents' driveway, snow had started to fall in small, lazy flakes. Inside, my mother had hung a simple garland and 3 stockings over the fireplace, one with my name, one with Tyler's, one with LLJH carefully embroidered in her neat looping stitches. "I started it as soon as you told us the name," she said, when she saw me looking. "I figured he deserved to see himself on the mantel." I traced the letters with my fingertips. "He does," I said. We put Eli down in the crib my father had reassembled from the attic. We sat on the couch, the 3 of us, the TV murmuring some old Christmas movie in the background. Tyler's phone buzzed again. He glanced at it this time. "They're saying some things," he said quietly. "They will," I replied. "For a while." He put the phone face down on the coffee table. "But they're not here," he said. "And we are." We sat in silence for a minute, watching the lights on the tree. "Do you regret it?" he asked. "Cancelling the banquet." I thought of the empty hall, the fancy centerpieces that would never be used, the plates never filled. Of Diane's fury, Mark's disappointment, the ripples of gossip. Then I thought of Cafe Juniper, of my father's toast, of my mother's cookies, Joe's loud laugh, Emily's fierce hug, of Eli's stocking. "No," I said. "I don't." I had been invisible for a long time in the Markham story. Cancelling the banquet hadn't just taken their Christmas away. It had given mine back. I rested my head on Tyler's shoulder, feeling the tension in him ease, slowly, like a rope being unknotted. This wasn't the end of the work. There would be more fights, more hard conversations, more moments where choosing myself and my son meant others would accuse me of selfishness. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid of that, because I knew, now, that I could survive their disappointment. I could not survive disappearing from my own life. I looked over at the mantel, at the 3 stockings hanging in a neat line. My name, his name, our name. "Merry Christmas," I whispered, more to myself than anyone else. For the first time, it felt like it might actually be. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications.